Therapists busier than ever these days. Black therapists in especially high demand, and it's easy to see why. Just look at how traumatic the last year has been. The images of black people shot and killed by police over and over. The mass protests, the deep wounds of systemic racism open and bare. Not to mention COVID and the Capitol riots. It has been a year. Laura Morse is a licensed psychotherapist with a private practice in Atlanta who says she has seen an increase in black clients over the past year. Laura, thanks for being with us. As most of our viewers know, Tuesday was the first anniversary of George Floyd's death. How have the police shootings and the mass protests over the last year affected the black clients you've been seeing?
Well, thank you for having me, Allison. It's really almost hard to put into words. It's just been such a condensed year of, honestly, a lot of pain and grief and trauma. And so I have seen an influx in people who are saying, you know, in addition to all of the other things that are coming and going in my life, look what's happening in our world and in our nation, in our communities. What can you offer me to help me feel a little bit more grounded and a little bit more safe?
The riot at the Capitol in January was also a really traumatic experience. Have your clients been talking to you about that day as well?
Almost, I would say 99% of my clientele, black, white, and other,
Wow.
discussed the Capitol riots, discussed the concern about our democracy. And what I noticed is that after the riots, and myself included, a lot of people were incredibly afraid to say, you know, I need to have some idea that there's containment, that there's some semblance of protection, even if there's a lot of flaws in between or in our lives and things that we cannot control. And to see what happened in our government at that time was deeply upsetting and, again, traumatizing.
How about couples? I mean, how has this past year and COVID affected them? We're all getting to know each other just a little bit better.
Well, you know, it's interesting that you ask, because in my own life with others, it's like, well, if I didn't like you before, I either definitely know I like you now or I don't. And so a lot of couples have really honestly found a renewed sense of commitment to one another, because with such turmoil with COVID and other, people needed to feel safe. And so getting back to those moments where, like, I chose you because of these factors here. And a lot of times people said, I see that now with all of the things that are going on, kind of pushed out, what's going on in our home. And what I know is that I love you. And for some couples, they become very clear that we're not meant to be together, and we will figure that out.
Look, it's certainly been a journey, right? I think about my own household over the last year, and, well, we certainly learned how to fight things out, figure things out, and come to the other side. We've definitely grown our marriage several years in just one. So I hope other people are having that eventual positive experience. Yeah. Hey, it's a journey, though, right? You got to put the work in.
Yes, and when you do, it makes it easier.
You say, yeah. Yeah, it eventually does.
It makes it a lot easier for your couples therapist.
We're the only people. That's for sure. But hey, at the beginning, there were times, and I know we were just thinking, man, I haven't seen anybody but you. This is going to be a long year if we don't see anybody else.
Yes, you got it.
In an NBC article, you say, when you are exhausted and seeking help, maybe you waited until a crisis, you don't want to take the time to find out whether a therapist who is white will understand you. You go on to say that people came wanting and needing immediate connections. Can you talk a little bit more about why that immediate connection is so very important?
Again, it goes back to the idea of feeling safe. It's not that someone of color cannot have a therapist who is not of the same race or ethnicity or sexual orientation. But it is incredibly crucial that the person who is sitting in front of you as your therapist understand you. And so, again, with this time of crisis, and for many people who in communities where mental health is something that is not openly talked about or shared, the idea of going to ask for help and then not knowing, you know, is this person even going to understand why I'm so triggered right now, why I'm so hurting, because I don't even fully understand it. Correct. So that's what I saw a lot of people reaching out to me to say, I know as a Black woman, you can understand, and we don't have to go through all of this history. Can you meet me where I am? Right. And I could do that.
Yep. Yeah, looking for someone who maybe has a shared experience, who, as you say, can more easily meet them where they are. So let's talk about that, though, because Black therapists are underrepresented, right? As of 2019, only 3% of the psychology workforce in the U.S. was Black. That's according to the American Psychological Association. So what advice do you have for people who want to see a Black therapist but can't find one, or just can't get an appointment with one because they are so darn busy right now?
Okay, so there are tools out there to search by gender, race, ethnicity, et cetera. So you could look to find some of those providers throughout a Google tool. You can talk to your insurance company and say, hey, I would like this. I would like you to help me find a therapist who fits this criterion. And people within the insurance industry, I feel like could do a better job of really assisting their clients to find a provider that is a better fit for them. Okay, so these are just things as a practitioner. Other therapists will help you find other therapists if they cannot serve you. I certainly do it all the time. And I gladly do it because mental health is just that important to me. Okay, but let's just say that you're in a community where you cannot. Again, don't be afraid to ask that therapist that is not of the same race or the same gender or the same orientation. Will you and can you truly help me through these issues? They are important to me. And if the therapist says something like, well, we're all human, or it's not really that big of a deal, or doesn't really factor into what we're working on, I wouldn't stay with them. Yeah, I really honestly wouldn't. And I will tell you a personal story. When I was getting married 24 years ago, I'm a new clinician, and I was having a lot of anxiety. And so with my insurance plan, I had to see somebody who was available. It was someone who was not a Black woman. And I talked about what it was like to work in the community center where I was the only Black clinician. And she said, sometimes we tend to have a chip on our shoulders. I don't exactly know what that meant, but I'll tell you what it really meant for me was that I was never coming back to her. It made me understand immediately what the power when somebody is saying, I need help, what it feels like if you're immediately dismissed. And that could go with mental health, medical, et cetera. Nobody wants to be dismissed, correct? So I made it my mission to explain to people, what is it that I can do, but what do you need from me? And if I can't provide that, then let me help you find someone that will be a better fit for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you're certainly not serving your clients with comments like that. I can completely understand why you chose not to go back there. How about young Black professionals who are thinking, I would like to become a therapist. I would like to get into this field. What would you say to them right now? What's your best advice?
I would say, please, really, if you are interested, if you feel like you have the acumen, if you feel like you have the acumen and you have the passion, then go forward. I'm a clinical supervisor, and I happen to have a lot of supervisees who are younger, Black and brown supervisees, men and women, and I love working with them. I love encouraging them and saying how important they are, them to get through, because it's a long process, right? And you need a lot of guidance and a lot of patience, and sometimes you don't get the big bucks. You have to figure that out later on, and you can, but we are needed. We are desperately needed. And so if anyone says, oh, you're wasting your time in this field, there is a mental health pandemic. And I will tell you, I have never been more popular than I have been in this last year and a half. And it's not going away.
Yeah, we are certainly in a mental health crisis. To that end, I have you here, Laura, and some of our viewers may be thinking, man, I have been struggling this year, and maybe I have never gone to a therapist. I don't have someone that I can talk to. I wasn't sure if I could afford it. We've got you here. Some tips for our viewers who have been having a rough year, whatever it is that they're struggling with, whether it's what they've been watching on the news, whether it's COVID, whether it's being stuck at home with a partner that maybe they're not seeing eye to eye. Any advice you can give people who are thinking, this has been a tough year and I'm having trouble getting from day to day?
Well, first, I would hope that I could alone. And because you're not alone, people can take solace in that there's nothing wrong. It doesn't have to be a pathology if you are hurting, if you are anxious, if you are experiencing trauma. And so it is okay to ask for help. Google is actually a friend when it comes to mental health, because you can put, what is anxiety, what is depression, and all of these wonderful resources will come up. There's an organization called Silence the Shame that I am Loving Right Now by a woman named Shanti Das, who has used her personal story to really connect with others around mental health and really people of color. Again, it doesn't have to be about race or ethnicity or orientation, but it has to be about being honest that you might need some support and where and how can you find it? And so it's okay to ask. And if somebody makes you feel like you shouldn't ask, then don't ask that person. Go to your doctor, talk to your insurance company, a trusted friend. But really, there is so much you can find help.
I love hearing you say that Google is okay in this situation because, I've been that person who's WebMD'd things. You got to scratch and all of a sudden you're convinced you have cancer. But it's so nice to hear that Google can be a great resource, and there are wonderful resources out there. Laura, sometimes all we need to hear is that we're not alone. Thank you for that bit of advice, and thanks for the work you've been doing this year. I know that folks of lots of races, genders, ethnicities are in need of help. And I know you've been helping them. You say you've been busier than ever, huh?
Yes, I have. But Allison, it does make me feel good that you acknowledge that, because it's hard sometimes. Like, I put on a happy face because I am happy, but I just take care of myself. There's moments where I haven't felt so happy. I have a family, I have friends, people are suffering. But I appreciate that you acknowledge that I've been working hard, because I know that I have, and that's okay. We all do in our way. You know that, being a journalist and covering the kind of news you have to cover from day to day. So I hope you take care of yourself as well. And I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you right back, and know you're not alone. I know the therapist doesn't often get to, vent and get the help that you offer to so many of us. So we're sending the love right back. And please come back and see us again. We are trying to make a point of talking about the mental health issues that people are going through right now, right? Because it's not just COVID. It's not just sickness and illness. We're struggling in other areas as well.
Yes, thank you very much. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and it should be every month. It's Mental Health Awareness Month and self-care, and we can do this together.
Thank you, Laura. We'll see you real soon.
All right, take care.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.